I think I want to talk a bit more about that stage. So Sozo has an amazing portfolio. You have invested in Square for their Series E. You invested in you invested in Coinbase for their Series C. You invested in Zoom. You invested in Palantir for their Series G back in 2012. Most of your investments are what's called late stage, right? Why do you like those stages? Is it because of the nature of your fund, or what's behind that?
I would say, for example, Square was classically late stage. It was the pre-IPO round. We would have invested early. We could have gotten in. We were a very young firm. So Twitter was quite a late stage investment, which was our first investment.
Which stage was it?
Twitter was a secondary purchase of common shares out of employee. Right.
Okay.
We have a couple. But I think there's a couple rules of thumb. So if you're looking at a very large scale enterprise deal, an enterprise platform, say a Palantir, a Fastly, something like that, which is also one of our companies that went public. Right. You're probably going to invest later because those companies take a longer time to build enterprise presence in the US, which is a very important proof point. You're probably not going to get enterprise buy-in. For example, you're not going to get a Japanese bank to buy into a US platform unless they have some enterprise traction at a peer, a Citibank, a Morgan Stanley, something like that. And those companies just have long sales cycles, and it takes a long time to get them up and running.
Right.
We have investments in a company like Insightly, which is a transplanted Australian company to the Bay Area, and we invested in the B. And they're a small medium enterprise CRM platform, and they have a freemium model, so people pull it down from all over the world.
CRM, customer relation management.
Yes. Yeah. And so they had hundreds of customers in Japan. When we met them, they were $3 million as Series B. So when you get into a smaller footprint of a technology or less complex technology, then we can go earlier and earlier. Now, what's happening? One of the trends that's happening that's very important is that the ties from Japanese organizations, banks or retail or whatever, their ties to their activity, M&A activity, and ties to U.S.-based subsidiaries is stronger and stronger. So now what we can do is we can actually work with companies earlier on testing the Japanese market by testing them with a subsidiary in the U.S., which didn't used to be very useful because they didn't talk very much. And that's actually Japanese organizations are becoming proactive on using those entities as test beds. So basically you can test and penetrate the Japanese market without changing your behavior as a domestic player. And then once you prove traction there and you make sure that you've created the proper threads back to Tokyo, when they're ready to expand to Tokyo, you don't have to reinvent and re-educate the executives. They've been watching this thing for years. That's super critical to accelerating the growth.